All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, it should be working fairly well. I see that the chat is moving. Sabercat666 says clank even. Mrs. Tag, I enjoy a good bus trip story. Yeah, that was fun this morning doing that one. Mike White 81, Black Clank, and Salty Baked Idahoan, so early. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to be talking about all sorts of cool stuff today. We're going to be talking about the Giuliani hatchet job. That's what I perceive of it as being. I'm going to give my thoughts on that. I'm going to make a connection with what I think is happening with regards to the Giuliani lawsuit. A former employee, assistant actually, claiming that he effectively offered her a job for sex. And then dovetailing some other things in there that I think are awfully convenient. I think there's a reason for that. I don't overlook that as a coincidence. The Durham report is being spun out of all proportion by the legacy media. By the way, we have the real-life Dicky Dick here. Rather similar to the fatty fat cat back there, the one that pisses in the plants and does all manner of other terrible things. And also the latest predictions of the end times from the climate change cult. So we'll be talking about that too, among other things. But first, we'll make sure we're live on Rumble, of course. Let's see. Are we live? Yeah, we're live on Rumble. I can see myself petting the cat. I don't need to be distracted by that. It will distract me from actually petting the cat, and then she'll get pissed at me and meow into the microphone over and over. Shark Dentures. A clanker is never late. He clanks precisely when he means to. Gandalf the Earl Grey. I like that. I don't actually have coffee right now. I've got a little bit more of the tonic water with the elderberry or elderflower extract in it. And it's funny because elderflower is listed as a laxative in the Materia Medica that I'm currently editing as we speak. I'm halfway through it. I don't find it to have any laxative properties, so it must be a low concentration. Ramon CGTC. Sticks love the new Tales series. Clank on. Yeah, I don't know that that's going to become a series, but it was something that I wanted to talk about because when I went down to Texas on Greyhound and back, a trip in total, almost 5 entire days on the road, it was so full of crazy shit. I mean, this is nuts. Xyle000. Obama removed the moratorium on creating potential pandemic pathogens with only 11 days left in his term. It was all deliberate to honk honk. I can't mention that last part on YouTube, unfortunately, but people can read it anyway. Yeah, Obama did. I mean, he also gave away the internet with ICANN. So he did that, and I think the year before he left. Obama did a lot of stupid shit. And again, the only thing I can give him credit for is something that the left pounded him on, which was opening up more exploratory drilling and not saying no to hydraulic fracking. High pot thesis. Have you seen Vince McMahon's current look, and do you think he's planning to upload his conscience to AI? I know nothing about Vince or about wrestling or anything associated with it because I don't like sports, and I would loosely define that as a sport anyway. It's more of a performance art. Anyway, we'll be talking about some various things. Here's the first news story. It's an important one, but not for reasons that are genuinely being speculated. Giuliani, that's Rudy Giuliani, of course, of the Trump team in 2016 and 2020, accused of offering to sell Trump pardons for $2 million each in new lawsuit. This is NBC News reporting, replicated by Morning Joe. So you know it's absolutely accurate, of course. I've got my doubts about this on several levels, and I pointed this out. Link in the description is literally just to a tweet that I made on the subject. I doubt the story. That is, I see no evidence of it. I see a claim. I see a claim that there are recorded conversations with regards to Giuliani offering a lucrative job position in exchange for sexual favors. I've seen no actual recordings at this time. They may or may not exist. So I'm not going to assume guilt because I've seen the Durham report and things like that. And I realize that at this point, the deep state really is gunning for anyone associated with Trump. So I'm not automatically going to assume that Giuliani is guilty. By the way, even the most diehard liberal in the country 15 years ago would have hesitated to criticize the man. He was America's mayor. He was a national hero. He did such a great job. He was on the short list to run for the presidency, actually, for some time back in the 2000s, and 9/11, basically. And he's such a great guy, and even a lot of liberals, if not liked him, at least tolerated him. But as soon as he joined up with the Trump campaign, he became fair game. Before that, nobody cared. Secondly, if Giuliani was attempting to sell pardons by Donald Trump, that doesn't necessarily implicate Donald Trump now, does it? Even if he did do that, it could have been his own idea. And it may very well be that that's the case, which would be hilarious. Giuliani, in his elderly haze, he cooked up a bizarre plan to sell Trump pardons for $2 million a pop. But he didn't let the big guy know that he was going to do that. It basically, the form and function could be basically, hey, I'll offer people pardons for $2 million, cash on delivery, I suppose. And then I'll suggest that Donald Trump pardon these people. And if they get pardoned, of course, they have to pony up. That's possible. It wouldn't be beyond the realm of the pale for a public official. I would note to all the Democrats dogpiling on the issue, have you ever heard of Bill Clinton? Have you ever heard of Pardongate, a la the Clinton administration, when in the twilight hours of his administration, all of a sudden a bunch of mafiosos who later donated large sums to Democratic campaigns happened to be pardoned? Well, that's very interesting. It's almost like the law is like a spider's web, and the flies get caught and the wasps go free. Unless you're a rebellious wasp, then you also get caught by the spider. And I think it's a hatchet job. To be clear, I don't believe this. Now, what I think is happening here is as follows. Imagine that you've got a case against Rudy Giuliani. You're going to claim, because he's down and out anyway, he's already being pounded by the legal system. He's politically has become toxic effectively because of propaganda. You've convinced people that Rudy Giuliani is a bad dude. He's working with evil Orange Hitler. And so he's vulnerable. And we've seen this before with the Me Too movement, with multiple individuals. Hit them when they're down, basically, is the name of the game of the Me Too grift. You've got a Rudy Giuliani who's down and out. You want to hit him hard. But you know that simply claiming, hey, he offered me a job for sex. That's old hat at this point. So what do? You get the TDS crowd aboard by saying, oh, by the way, he also said that he was selling pardons for $2 million. And Trump was probably presumptively aware of this happening. I think this is an epic dovetailing. The goal of this, in my opinion, is more likely to get a settlement from Rudy Giuliani. Now, for several reasons. Number one, you get your money. You get your payday. Giuliani wants the case to go away. He settles out of court for untold millions of dollars, which supposedly he promised initially just to suck his dick. And number two, you get to attack Trump, because if it ends in a settlement, an out-of-court settlement, then it makes Trump look guilty. Oh, Giuliani was covering for his former boss. Well, Trump obviously was in on the pardon scandal, and now we need to investigate that too. And then, of course, you can have the actual legal system, probably Senate Judiciary more than anything else, look into the case and uncover the evidence. So years later, when no evidence is likely uncovered, it won't have mattered because it will drag on through the 2024 election. This is a political hatchet job, and it's very, very cunning. It's very, very intelligent the way they're doing this. I doubt the story is actually true. I have extreme doubt about whether Giuliani and or Trump were involved in a pardoning scandal. To Trump, $2 million would be feeble. Why the fuck would he be involved with such a thing? Oh, you give me $2 million. Trump shits $2 million. Trump wipes his ass with $1 million. He can sit there and light $1 million in a pile on fire on a bonfire, and he doesn't give a fucking shit. He can make that in a few days. He doesn't care about that total. Giuliani, at the time that this supposedly occurred, by the way, was still riding high, even despite being embattled by the legal system. Still, high-class lawyer, extremely recognizable name, lots of political allies. Why would he actually do that? I'm questioning whether he would bother, because it's $1 million is a lot to me. It's nothing to Donald Trump, and to Giuliani, he can do a couple of fundraisers and he can make that much money. Trump can do it effortlessly just on rental properties. I am severely questioning the veracity of this story. I don't think that it's true. I think it's a dovetailing. It's meant to get attention for that case and force a settlement by dragging in Orange Man Bad. And that's the long and short of it, in my opinion. We know that Giuliani's a horn dog, but that doesn't mean that he offered someone money to suck his dick, and it certainly doesn't mean that he offered presidential pardons, which he can't enact himself anyway, for $2 million a piece. Again, think you're Donald Trump. You're worth several $1 billion. Do you really give a shit at that point? I don't think so. Let's see. Got Kenthis 15. Fighting a court battle with my landlord. He's claiming I caused damage to the building. Every inspector and his own plumbers say it took decades to happen. I moved in 6 months ago. Felt like ranting. My apologies for that on behalf of your shitty landlord. Free Golem. Am I derping out, or do Sticks have 2 accounts on Rumble with and without the 666? My genuine account is linked in the description. That is the only account that represents me. The other one, I believe, simply re-ups material. And as far as I know, it's just to replicate it probably for algorithmic purposes. So I haven't so far complained about it. There were a couple of accounts pretending to be me, and I got them down. That one, I believe, may be a fan account. Clarific77. Good morning, Sticks. Please send us a shout out to my brother Ben, who is flying to Washington, D.C. this morning. Makes me nervous, but I'm sure he'll have fun. Shout out to Ben. Have fun in D.C. You know, if you can hold your nose long enough to deal with the swamp gas over there, more power to you. Brother Shogo, what do you think of Elon Musk's comments regarding George Soros? They're pedestrian. Anyone who's in right mind hates George Soros. The Great Scalzini, is there an occult connection to the idea of associating owls with wisdom? I saw a barn owl last night and it seemed more demonic than wise. No, there's no occult connection there, really, with regards to that usage, as far as I can tell. Null hypothesis. Giuliani couldn't get laid in a women's prison with a handful of pardons. Scrooge McClank. Where the fuck has Sticksex and Toolbox been? His trolls are missed. Yeah, we haven't seen any Toolbox posting yet. I'm pissed about this. It ruins my day. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. More meat funds. Lots and lots of meat. Swamp Donkey 69420 on Rumble. Clinton pardoned the Weather Underground terrorist in 94. She was responsible for bombings, etc. Then went to lead BLM. True, by the way. Little known fact. And by the way, link in the description, cross-platform, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Rumble, and also pinned at the top of chat on YouTube for Wokeness is Wrong. This is a booklet that I've just written. I will only show this today and tomorrow on the live streams, and then I'll leave it alone. I'm trying to see how many copies that an academic work against wokeness garners in comparison to the satirical, the flippant work that I made prior, which is Orange Man Bad, which is about liberals fantasizing about Donald Trump's mushroom. So far, sales of both have been excellent. And in the latter case, I think it's like 300 copies already. So they are relatively close for the first week sales. I'm just trying to think, do people want more of the academic style stuff, or do they want more of the comedy, my weird thoughts, my grave humor and scatological humor sort of thing? So if you want the academic stuff, get a copy. I always appreciate when people give me reviews as well. If you just leave a rating on Amazon, that's fine as well. That helps with the algorithm. The more ratings that it gets, trust me, it definitely favors you in the algorithm. And Amazon hasn't yet fucked with its algorithm on any meaningful level. It actually does go by ratings and reviews, which is different from all other main tech sites other than maybe, I suppose, Twitter at this point. It's a refutation of wokeness, and I think many people would enjoy it. It's a short work. It's meant to be pithy. And I would like to announce, by the way, and I'll be making a video tomorrow with a teaser from my new work on gun control, parsing apart the arguments for and against gun control and or gun rights in the United States and giving my thoughts on them. I think the first section will intrigue many of you. I strongly recommend tomorrow when I upload that video, if you support the Second Amendment, if you support the right to self-defense, watch it. I have a feeling that you're going to enjoy it. I point out a couple things I've never seen anyone else point out with regards to argumentation on the topic. And I think it would be valuable to people in overcoming the anti-gunners in debate form. And so I'll be putting that forward. Let's see. We got more news. John Durham's report and a presidency in crisis. The press covers its eyes about Joe Biden helps re-elect Donald Trump. This is WSJ opinion. Now, this is entirely framed against the concept by the opinion piece maker that Trump should not be re-elected. He's got TDS and thinks Trump is Orange Man. He's the retarded Hitler. He's an evil person. He's going to destroy the republic. He hates democracy. He hates gay people, transgendered people, brown people. He hates women. Who doesn't he hate? I guess just himself at some point. It's interesting, though. The spin that I see with regards to the Durham report is sheer. Not just on this article, but on any article that you've seen from the legacy media on the topic. Of course, the Durham report has shown the FBI improperly handled non-evidence, which is what it was, the Steele dossier, etc. It did not properly vet it. Political motives were involved. The process should never have moved forward to the FISA level, let alone the deputy AG at the time, Rosenstein, who claims that he never even read the FISA application before he signed off and gave it the green light. I wonder why. The entire process from top to bottom was bullshit. That's the only word for it. It was complete, unrepentant, partisan bullshit. Durham has pointed this out. He stopped short of calling it illegal, but I mean, there's an insinuation there now, isn't there? It's a little bit like Comey with Hillary Clinton's email server. Hey, everyone should know wrong was done here. We're just not recommending charges. That's a wink and a nudge. If anything, I think Durham may have taken a leaf directly out of Comey's book on this one. Anyway, the spin is that the inability of people to understand why this is bad, refute it, and part from it and give up the Russiagate hoax stuff is going to help Trump get reelected. That's the gist of this article. Well, we fucked up. We dragged a man for multiple years and arguably at least broke the law in doing so to an active presidential campaign / sitting president. We did this for a number of years and we fucked up and we need to admit it and move on and go to better things. Otherwise, we're going to lose. Donald Trump will be reelected. Now, never is the connection made here that, hey, if Donald Trump was right about that, then he might be right about some of the other accusations against him, like the Mar-a-Lago documents scandal, which isn't really a scandal. They still talk about it a lot. His tax returns, election interference in Georgia, etc. If Donald Trump was right about that one in a big way, like 90% of the way, is there any reason to believe that he wasn't right on these other potentially spurious charges, being politically motivated and handled through by a partisan process that is improper and legally should not exist at all? But that connection is never made. Even so, the news blackout can't conceal the suspicious details unearthed by congressional investigators about Biden family bank accounts, shell companies, and transfers from shady foreign actors. Yes, they even throw Biden under the bus with regards to this story. They point out, hey, Donald Trump was dragged over spurious allegations. You've got allegations against Biden. It looks like the DOJ is covering for his ass. Very, very interesting. The press should also understand what it saw on CNN last week, an audience clapping and yipping, not because they think Mr. Trump is a fount of accuracy, which he's not. I mean, he's a politician. But because they see a cynical operator beating America's media and political elites at their own game of nonstop cynicism. My guess, there's now a 50% chance that a Biden candidacy would simply end up effectively abdicating the 24 contest to Mr. Trump. This is a liberal making an opinion piece on one of the premier hit piece defamation / uniparty liberal publishers worrying about Donald Trump largely being likely to get reelected. Now, of course, he's approaching this from a completely different perspective that I do, but the culmination is fundamentally the same now, isn't it? Mr. Biden yet might drop out of the race. Mr. Trump's path to the nomination might still be interrupted by a DeSantis or Tim Scott. Trust me, it wouldn't be Tim Scott. Don't worry about him. But the press should stop kidding itself about its own role. In the classic definition of insanity, its effort to keep Mr. Trump out of the White House by sacrificing its own standards of integrity and truth-telling when it comes to Mr. Biden, Mrs. Clinton, the Russia hoax, etc., is what will put Mr. Trump back in the White House. Oh boy, do I hope that that actually comes true. I hope he fucking crucifies you people afterwards, by the way. Ryan McDonald, USA. Why do New York City young Republicans support George Santos? I posted about this earlier, and it's not a news story here, so I won't elaborate too much, but I'll weigh in on it briefly. George Santos has not been found guilty of any crime or in any civil case. It is likely that he is guilty of at least some of the charges against him. Expelling him from Congress does not make sense unless there is actually an investigation that results in substantive evidence. Him lying about his educational or career acumen, well, Joe Biden calling, Elizabeth Warren calling. This happens all the fucking time in D.C. The fact is that he was just more brazen about it and less able to cover it up. That's the only difference. George Santos on those counts just did what Joe Biden did provably for a number of years and occasionally still meanders back into. Well, I was a star student. I was a top student at my school, and I had this job and that job. Elizabeth Warren, I'm full-blooded Cherokee. I'm basically a Redskin. No, you're not. You're more waspish than literally anyone watching this video right now. As far as the other charges, some of them deal with fraud, election law, and so forth. Those are more meaningful, but he hasn't been found guilty of any of them. He's only been investigated, so to kick him out of Congress makes no sense. Soulstorm 9000. Isn't the Durham report actually a bigger event than Watergate? I would say so, yes. Our goldfish level attention spans are going to let this slide, which is insane. No, plenty of us are definitely talking about it. We're talking about it right now. It's just the legacy media is trying to run cover for Biden because they're fucking terrified of Orange Man. Literally, Joe Biden right now could strangulate Jill in her sleep, and they would cover for him. They would ignore the story. He had a spell. One of his pills interfered with his mind, and he must have done it accidentally because here's 5 heartfelt photos of him kissing her hand and obviously loving her so much. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say I think they do that. Wookie Gremlin. What do you think about that Borat dude and Giuliani? And to clarify from the other day, thanks to you for the great videos. Also, canning new food. Yeah, get canning. That's the good shit. Giuliani did nothing wrong in that particular scene, which was heavily edited anyway for comedic effect. I did watch the second Borat movie, so I know what you're talking about. I didn't see any wrongdoing. If anything, I just saw Giuliani being a bit awkward. Dev Public, best wishes for my dog being spayed this morning. Ha 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 ha, genital removal. The Patriot Cairo, the Colorado Teachers Union condemned capitalism, doesn't want to teach it in school. Why are we paying for this? Yet another reason to homeschool. Yeah, homeschooling is best if you can do it. Will Kincaid, nice blouse. Good to see Andrew Tate bought it back. I'm just waiting for powdered wigs to come back into fashion. Here are 5 shekels. Have a good one. Thank you. Brother Shogo, do you think the Hispanic Texas shooter was truly anti-Semitic or just an edgelord? Also, why haven't they released the trans shooter manifesto yet? The school now is suing to not release the manifesto, which makes me awfully goddamn suspicious that my initial suspicions were correct. There will be allegations of abuse or impropriety at the school. The shooter had a personal grudge, and that's why the shooting occurred. That's probably why it's not been released yet. I do not know about the Hispanic Texas shooter and having any particular political or social views. It is possible for Hispanics, though, to be anti-Semitic. It's possible for a Jew to be anti-Semitic by modern standards, I guess, too. Swamp Donkey again. In your opinion, are we entering an age in which a Neo-Caesar will come about? Or are we the next Weimar Slavia? I don't know. I do think that the best days are still ahead. It's just, we're going through a little bit of a rough patch here for some time now, aren't we? Through human ingenuity, we can improve the world and we can improve our lives. People just need to take personal responsibility. That's why the powers that be want you not to take personal responsibility. They want you to think that all you have to do is vote every few years and rely on someone else to solve your problems for you. That helps them to control you more easily. Next news story, we have the new end times cult. Since I've been alive, I've heard people proclaim that the end is nigh multiple times. Y2K comes to mind. All of the tinfoil hatters were claiming that all the computers are going to shut down. The banking industry will die. All of our money will be lost. There will be no food available. Electrical systems will blow up and everyone will fucking die. And it never happened, of course. Most people just turned their computers off for a 24-hour period and everything was fine. There were a few systems that were affected, but overall it was overblown, and I remember it being talked about extensively at the time. What about the Mayan end times prophecy in 2012, which I talked about at the time and said, look, there is no end times prophecy. They're talking about one of their long counts. It's not even the longest count within their calendar. And if you interpret the few things that have been actually capable of being interpreted by being translated with regards to their prophecy, nothing talks about, hey, the world's going to end, it's Ragnarok or anything like that. I've seen end times pastors, multiple Christian cult leaders. There's the Red Heifer Institute in Israel, actually. They're trying to bring forth the end times by crowning their Messiah, actually, by sacrificing the perfect red heifer at the Temple Mount. They've got all the implements to do it, by the way. Multiple times they thought they had a perfect red heifer. I think in the end, they had more than 2 hairs of a different color other than red, so they were considered to be unacceptable. At some point, they'll probably find one. They'll demand that it be led on the Temple Mount to sacrifice it so that, well, not Jesus, according to their opinion, but whoever the end times Antichrist is can come back and rule the world and enslave everyone or something. Now we've got a new one, though, and it's not religious for a change. Now we've got the climate end timers sounding the alarm. Oh my God, world on track to breach 1.5 degrees of warming in the next 5 years. And of course, this is the tipping point. This is the point of no return. This is the edge across which we have gone over. Where have I heard this before? Oh, that's right. It was about dissolved CO2 in the oceans. That was back in the dawn of the 2010s. We hit that tipping point almost 10 years ago. It was the old climate predictions with regards to temperatures. It was about CO2 in the atmosphere, the number of people in the world, the amount of square acreage that was settled by humans over and over and over again. I keep hearing this from these fucking morons. Hey, the world's going to end because we're going past the point of no return. And every time we do, and then there's another point of no return. Somebody should probably write a book of their failed predictions. It reminds me, actually, of predictions about Iran getting and then, of course, deploying nuclear weapons. Iran supposedly was going to get the bomb within, I think it was 12 months, back in 1994. In fact, I think it was Netanyahu that specifically warned about that. Clearly never happened. There have been several dozen warnings since then that would happen. Well, it hasn't happened yet. It's 2023. It's a long way from the fucking middle of the Clinton administration, and they still don't have the bomb. They're probably working on it, but again, who cares? They've been warning that they would fundamentally get it in a short order, in 6 months, in a year, in a couple of years or something, half a decade. And all of those predictions have been completely wrong. At some point, it's like listening to Chicken Little. And that's what I now perceive the climate enthusiasts as being, Chicken Little. It's just a grift. All it is a way to make money, nothing more. None of the proposals that they're making actually positively affect the climate, or would, assuming that man-made climate change is a thing and a problem specifically. Of course, if it's not a problem, nobody cares. It has nothing to do with, hey, we need to mass mobilize people to plant 1 trillion trees this year. That's not done. It has nothing to do with, hey, we need to get the rich to get rid of their 5th mansion because it's unsustainable. Get rid of their yacht. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you living in a pond and you eating the bugs. You will be limited in your red meat purchases at restaurants in New York City going forward, supposedly. The rich, well, they don't care. They can take their limo outside of the city and they can go get it in Jersey City. They can go and get their 40-ounce steak. It's a power grab. That's all it is. It's a naked power grab that any reasonable person would see through. You have to be young and idealistic and stupid and think that your professors actually know what the fuck they're talking about and be like an Ivy College student in order to actually believe this shit. If man-made climate change exists, according to the predictions already made, we're already doomed. So we might as well live it up with wine, women, and song because there's nothing we can do about it. And if that's wrong, if it's not a threat or it's not mainly man-made, who cares? If we can't control the climate, there's nothing we can do, so do nothing. If we can, but it isn't meaningful, then do nothing. Who cares? If we can, then that's fine. But we're constantly getting these predictions saying that we can, after a certain arbitrary threshold, CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, methane release, CO2 dissolved in the ocean, oceanic temperatures, surface temperatures, higher everything under the sun, the ozone layer. All of these predictions have been wrong. So why should we trust the people that are making the predictions? At some point, you've got to grow up and understand that these people really don't know what they're talking about, and they're a bunch of morons, actually. Kenthis15, favorite Fallout faction? I side with the Minutemen if I play Fallout 4. Generally. I've gone through and sided with each faction. I find that siding with the Minutemen is the most fun. Josh Eternal, Y2K was fake, but Y2J, Chris Jericho was real. Ozzy's Robots, good morning, Sticks. I am not the Patriot Cheerio. The Defamation League. YouTube is heavily censoring your super chats, trying to say something, but it won't let me no matter how much rephrasing and unusual characters I use. Not even trying to say anything particularly offensive this time. Oh, my apologies for that. It's not a surprise to me, though. The Patriot Cairo, leftoid parents upset in dem cities that illegals are being housed in school gyms. I give 0 fucks to give. They still vote dem, though. Yeah, we'll be talking about that, actually. In fact, isn't the next... no, that's after the BuzzFeed one. The Scrub and Scrubs, when you get a chance, look up where the caffeine and soda comes from. It seems like a big story that no one talks about. I think it's lab-produced, isn't it? Soleil333, these liars promised me acid rain by now back in the early 90s. There is some acidic rain in the world. That is not completely false. It's just that it didn't melt all the statues within 20 years. It didn't kill every pine tree, etc., etc. I remember that. My grandpa had a book on the subject, actually. He was into conservationism. I don't know whether he believed in acid rain or not as a fundamental issue. Next news story, BuzzFeed News Union is big pissed as of the other day. They're pissed at BuzzFeed, and here's why. Even though BuzzFeed News is closed down, we're still at the bargaining table, making sure everyone losing their jobs is treated fairly. Unfortunately, BuzzFeed couldn't care less. BuzzFeed is choosing to cut loose 4 members of our union, including the lowest paid workers and women of color. Oh my God, if it were a white male, you wouldn't care because you're BuzzFeed, but women of color, that's a fucking bridge too far. Without the safety net that everyone else will have, we're not going to let that happen. We'll wait and see whether you're successful, by the way. Under the New York WARN Act, almost every member of our union will stay on the payroll with full pay and health benefits for 12 extra weeks. These 4 people won't, only because they are arbitrarily not tied to the New York office. Well, I mean, BuzzFeed does have a point. If they're not actually from New York, then they're not covered under New York law now, are they? Are they in Jersey or something? Who knows? The company refuses to do anything more than they are legally required, leaving 4 members out of additional pay. This is especially shameful as most of these members receive some of the lowest salaries in our newsroom for their work as copy and audience engagement editors and so on forth. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you work for BuzzFeed. You're leftoids. If you weren't a leftoid, you wouldn't be working at this point for BuzzFeed. And you're surprised about the fact that a corporation is screwing you chocolate style up the ass, pretending that you can do something about it, number 2. And number 3, yeah, BuzzFeed is all sorts of fucked up. I like seeing it fuck its workers, though, because you probably deserve it. Just to be clear, if you're a leftoid working for BuzzFeed for the legacy media for years and years, helping them spew out defamatory propaganda, I'm sorry. I just can't find any sympathy for you in my cold and dead heart. I just don't care. BuzzFeed and similar groups have literally defamed me and others associated with me before, so you'll have to find somebody else to give a goddamn fucking cunt. It's not going to be me. Defamation League. Elon's platform is holding our account hostage, trying to coerce us into deleting a post. Our manager, Snake Coil Entertainment, is representing us for the time being to avoid ban evasion. Make sure to add him. He clanks as well. I'll look it up. Yeah. Many such cases. The Defamation League follow-up. Oh, damn. Got it to go through. Kinda. Minus the Elon insults. Well, there you go. Problem solved. So, yeah, as far as BuzzFeed goes, you're going to have to find somebody else to complain to. Because a lot of us content creators that have large audiences, there's thousands of people watching right now, we could, call out your parent company and say, hey, they're fucking up. But you added to a company that defamed most of us and called us Nazis and things like that. So, and your union workers, and I think that, involuntary unions like they have in New York should be illegal. So I don't care. Go ahead and suffer. It'll be funny to me. It's good if that happens. You deserve it. Maybe you'll switch your political loyalties when you realize just how cutthroat the supposedly far-left corporations really are. That the ESG doesn't sanitize them. I talked about this in my literal wokeness work that's linked, pinned in the commentary here on YouTube. I literally talk about this. The leftoid woketards think that if a corporation puts up the gay pride flag on its Twitter avatar for 1 month out of the year, which, by the way, is in a couple of weeks, June, of course, gay pride month. Soon it'll be gay pride quartile or something. They think that makes them better. That makes them more cheerful, more friendly. They're more worker-oriented. It's bullshit. It's branding. When you go to the corporation, you're still expected to do the same fucking slogging shit as before. It's no different working for BuzzFeed or working for CNN. It's the same propaganda. It's the same fucking bullshit. Sigil Stone. BuzzFeed, more like Buzz Need. Yeah, Buzz bankrupt at this point. Ozzy's Robots. YouTube is clearly up to shenanigans. I had shorts go from nearly 2K to 20 views, for example. This was after a surge in views and subs. 2024 manipulation. They've been doing that for a while to people like me. So join the club, Ozzy. Doubt Shadow. Shout out at Phil Bowman of South Buffalo, pondering his owl-eyed salami nipples in an enchanted mirror. Best not lose that staring contest. I fucking love that. Owl-eyed salami nipples. You made my day. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Not a panned account. Will Biden pardon the Biden family at the end of term? No, he won't have to, because nothing will come of legal cases against them. They'll disappear. Next news story. Eric Adams, that's the mayor of New York. You know, if you can call him a leader, then God bless you for being a fibber, is already backtracking on his plans for migrants. Oh, I wonder why. Immigration has become a central issue of Mayor Eric Adams' tenure, and not by choice. The city has contended with a staggering increase of asylum seekers from the southern border, many of whom were bused to New York from southern states like Texas and Florida, whose Republican governors are using the migrants to make a political statement. No, it's more like, hey, we've dealt with this for years. Why don't you understand the problems that we have? But, you know, hypocrisy aside, we'll continue. According to official tallies, more than 65,000 migrants have arrived in town since last year. Calling New York City a town, by the way, is a little bit sketchy, but okay. Oh my God. You have to deal with 65,000 migrants, most of which have only been temporarily there and then got shuttled elsewhere. You see, they don't want them in New York City. They don't need to take care of them. They're supposed to stay to home near the southern border. They're supposed to stay in the Rio Grande Valley or Las Vegas or Southern Cali or something like that. They're not supposed to come up to New York City. Are you? That's preposterous. We're not supposed to be dealing with this. You're supposed to be dealing with this. What I love is the NIMBYist hypocrisy. Eric Adams and the people of New York City, in some cases actually at this point, and Chicago now as well, complaining, oh my God, you need to prioritize service first. You can't use the school gym for migrants. What the fuck do you think that happens down at the southern border? And has been happening now for literally decades on and off, more on in the last couple of years. Shut the fuck up and deal with it. Have you ever been to borderland? Have you ever been to the Rio Grande Valley and seen like the border itself? I have. It's almost see it from the backyard of the house that I was in when I was in southern Texas. Well, I've seen that area. It's nice, by the way. I mean, it was when I was there in 2008, 2009. I don't know about now, but I liked it. There's avocado trees and Peruvian torch cactuses all over the place, and those would have been very, very fun if I had been able to snag a couple of branches of one at the time, but I digress. The border's a mess. You're rambling about this. Now Adams' handling of the influx is sparking major backlash among public officials in and around the city, which has also already forced him to backtrack on at least one of his controversial proposals. Yes, the gym proposal has been scrapped, but they're still emptying out vacant rooms in hotels to put up migrants that don't belong in the United States at all. It's almost like that what they believe is, well, we should have, I mean, they voted for this because they voted overwhelmingly for Biden. You voted for individuals that told you that they wanted to expedite the asylum process, end Title 42, et cetera, bring them into the country, catch and release style, and hope that they show up for their court appearance, which 99% of them won't. That's fine. That's what you voted for. But then you're worried that you have to deal with them. See, if they're in the southern states, out of sight, out of mind, in Texas or California, that's okay. Nobody in New York cares because they're not your fellow Americans. They're on the other side of the country, so you don't think too much about it. As soon as you have to deal with a little bit less welfare for you because you have to prop up 65,000 people, or less homeless shelter, or less room in the local, Hampton Inn, all of a sudden it's a huge problem. A bunch of goddamn NIMBYists. Not in my backyard. In your backyard, it's fine. I want criminals on your property. I want homeless people there. I want vagrants and migrants. You can take care of them. You can't ask me to do it. The biggest example of this was from Martha's Vineyard. Here you've got a bunch of multimillionaires with 7-bedroom homes, and they couldn't even spare any room. They had to put them up in the church. And that was like 65 people for the entire fucking island. By the way, one of the greatest things DeSantis ever did, if he wanted to earn some of my respect back, take 1,000 next time. Partner up with Abbott and with the state of Nevada. Get 1,000 illegals and fly them into Martha's Vineyard. Overrun the goddamn island. Make it 10,000. Look, I'll donate my fucking self. I will donate money. I'll make sure that people know it too, because I'd be proud to do so. I will donate to a plane seat for a migrant to go to Martha's Vineyard if you get something together where you can get at least 1,000 people there. And I'll fucking raise money for such a thing. Show them what you really mean. Show them their NIMBYism. Put a mirror up in front of their face so they can see the decrepit, hypocritical assholes they really are. And that's exactly what they are. Kennethis15, Stick Saxon Toolbox was stolen by the Patriot Churro. Churro is good if you like sweet shit. BW, remember when they promised us that California would sink? Lol. You think Newsom will be pressured into passing reparations? No, he's waffling on it and promising more action. We're going to look into it further. That's key for I want your woke votes, but I don't want to give you woke money. He's playing them like fools. Yeah, he's good at that. I mean, Californians are easily fooled people. James, can we stop the lie that Russia is a boogeyman? I don't support Russia in its effort against Ukraine, and I don't support Putin. But no, Russia is not the main geopolitical foe of the United States. It's China. To an extent, the EU might become the next major geopolitical foe if the Germans have their way. The Patriot Cairo, where did all these tools come from? Kevin Lee, should Trump pardon Biden in 2025? There won't ever be a case against him because he runs the DOJ, so he won't have to. And why not divert the VA from veteran care to migrant? Yeah, I mean, they might as well at this point. They've diverted every other aspect of society towards America lastism. Hair Juicer 3000, not all, but the Jews are, I can't read that. Yeah. Purge high fructose corn syrup from society. Think about what the term juice sounds like, and you'll get his intonation. I've got to be careful with super chats these days. Kennethis15, the churro is acting innocent. Clankers, no. Ozzy's Robots, if you want Dems to shut the border, organize Second Amendment flyers, anti-woke campaigns, and register red campaigns targeting migrants, and they'll shut it ASAP. You could probably do worse than doing that. Yeah, start like a quasi-libertarian movement in Mexico and say, look, the border's open. They're just going to process you, and you can come right in anyway, so who gives a fucking goddamn shit? Yeah, I mean, that's feasible, maybe. Sigil Stone, Yankee liberal scum, be like, no, not the heckin' consequences of our voterino. I say give them more of what they want. Now, don't blame all Yankees. These are New Yorkers. New York is not really part of the country at all. It's basically its own city-state. Parasitizing the rest of New York State, which otherwise is actually far red. Next news story. In the wake of the Durham report, Representative Stewart points to a growing group in Congress that wants to disband the FBI. Stewart and also Mike Lee and a few others have been looking into the possibility of defunding the FBI. Now, usually what they mean when they use defund, it's a glib term that piggybacks off to fund the police. What they really mean is freeze the budget, lower the budget, tinker with the budget, maybe cut some aspects of what they're doing and thus adjust the budget, which is fine. Here's the problem. It's not going to happen. I'm warning you all now, if Trump were to be reelected in 2024 with a supermajority of MAGA Republicans in the House and Senate, there would be at best even odds that you get anything beyond a topical reform of the FBI. Why? Because they have so much power. They apparently have limitless spying capabilities. And so even people that are in Congress are afraid of them because most of them have broken the law. That's really the long and short of it. Our politicians routinely do drugs. They routinely hire prostitutes. They cheat on their spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. They embezzle money. They commit fraud. And as long as they play relatively nice with the system, typically they can avoid any repercussions because the law is like a spider's web. The spider catches the flies, but the wasps go free. What happens if they antagonize too much and they actually attempt to hold a vote to shrink the FBI's role in our society back to what it should be, which is literal non-existence? If they literally disbanded the FBI as opposed to reforming it or defunding it, what would happen? Well, all of their dirty secrets would suddenly get leaked, if not necessarily before the vote, by other intel agencies that necessarily would absolutely grab up that intel. The FBI would simply, if it were disbanded, would give the intel and the power to the CIA, to the ATF, to the EPA, to other groups, and then they would carry on as normal. What we need is a massive, massive block on bureaucratic power in general. Not even just the FBI. Yes, okay, they're corrupt. Some members of the FBI are massively politically motivated and do terrible things. We have the same thing like the NSA. There were people that were spying on their own spouses and friends and shit using a specific acronym, Love Int, at the time. This never even got press coverage. And by the way, how are you going to convince the American public that's deluded into believing the FBI is necessary for law enforcement to function when the propagandistic legacy media, top to bottom, including, by the way, Fox, I guarantee this, would shield them, would argue that this is going to cause crime to skyrocket. Terrorists will come in and kill us all. People, when they're afraid, they do stupid shit like voting for authoritarian policies. All the legacy media and the government would have to do is tell people to be afraid of the disbanding of the FBI, and the people wouldn't support it. Even if it would save them a boatload of money, even if there is no self-evident reason for the FBI to continue to exist now that gangland era is over, they will still support the existence of the FBI. They will then be compelled to call anyone a traitor, quite literally, and argue for their censorship, successfully in some cases, if they make the case for disbanding the FBI. So it's not going to happen. You can reform it. You can put the genie partially back in the bottle. If you had a really long breath, you could probably boil the frog and eventually get rid of it. But as of right now, no. Any short-term plan that they have to get rid of the FBI is going to fall flat, which is unfortunate, but I'm here to tell you the truth, not to tell you what you want to hear. Not going to happen. They'd be better off arguing for reducing their budget or something like that. Force them to make layoffs. Reduce their power. Defang them first, then knock them over the head. Apache, leftists will close the border only if Latinas came. Yeah, I know. Yeah, if it were an influx of 1 million young marriageable females, then probably they would put up a wall really quickly. Can't have that happening. McNuck69, do you think if Trump is reelected, will there finally be accountability in the DOJ? P.S. I want to see people hang. I can't read that, actually, that last part. It's against YouTube's TOS. I'm not even allowed to read what other people fucking say half the time. Yes, I believe there will be accountability if Trump is reelected. But you have to understand there are limits to the ability to hold that accountability. As to the second part of your comment, I can neither confirm nor deny whether I agree with you, unfortunately. Not a bad account. Audio Skip said they cheat on their prostitutes. Oh. Well, they probably do. Oh, honey, am I really your only client? Yes, darling. You're the only one that I pay $200 an hour to. There's 3 more. The Patriot Cairo, if Trump wins 24, first thing to do, fire everyone. Again, don't expect him to be God Emperor. Expect him to be good, but not perfect. There's what you need to do. That is the proper way to look at a Donald Trump re-election. And by the way, even if Trump sat there and did nothing, he doesn't address the board, he literally fucking fails his second term. At the very least, can you imagine the goddamn glory of the salt from people who swore up and down he'd never be reelected? Going Grover Cleveland 2.0 comeback kid mode would fry the goddamn amygdalas of half of the liberals out there. It'd be worth it even if I thought that Trump wouldn't follow through. I would still vote for him. I believe he will, or at least try and do a good job, if not necessarily an excellent one. But even if I thought that he was going to do a mediocre job, he'd still have my vote for that reason only. Adherent of Lady Columbia. Right-wing touting idea of incentivizing births, and all my alarms are going off on the idea. Japan and Hungary's cost-to-birth ratio are poor, and it is not the government's business to influence birth rates. Yeah, although I do support increasing the child tax credit, which Trump instituted. He doubled it. Biden swiped it from Trump by front-ending it. I would support if Donald Trump were to come out and say, well, I'll double it again because, look at the Biden inflation. Not only would that be a really great score politically, it'd be a good policy. We should help people who are having kids. We should be helping because, the tax burden's onerous on everyone. Anytime taxes can be lowered for anyone, billionaire or goddamn completely impoverished, I'm on board. Ray Atkinson, Sticks, largest BDSM club, Black Rose in D.C., along with 2 large red light districts near the White House. Yeah, and who do you think goes there? Of course, lots of congressional staffers, lawyers, etc. Sayu Ayumu, hey Sticks, been watching for a while, and you've always seemed like a cool hippie, but not a commie. Thanks for all you've done. There's someone at the door. Just a moment. All right, my apologies. I'm going to have to cut this short. I'm not going to get to the Reefer Madness story, so I'll roll that over tomorrow because it's kind of a throwaway anyway. Any more super chats? Please send no more. I've got like a couple of minutes here before the baby probably fusses up. BW, what do you think about 3-parent baby in UK? I know nothing about it, so I don't have any thoughts. If you mean like a surrogacy situation, I don't know. And and Swamp Donkey on Rumble. This is why red states should make their areas impossible for federal enforcement. Example, imprisonment of ATF agents trying to enforce gun control. Who cares what my court says? Yeah, ignoring courts is becoming more and more common anyway. It seems that their decision, Bruin is routinely violated. Nothing is done about it. So, yeah, you can make that case, state supremacy. Sigilstone 17 to TFD, total FBI defund, behead the FBI budget, roundhouse kick the FBI budget into the concrete, slam dunk the FBI budget into the trash can, crucify filthy FBI budget. I do get the meme reference, by the way. So yeah, I'm going to go offline now because the baby is back and has had a difficult, very difficult day so far. It was an early morning. What can I say? Yeah, Liz is laughing over there. It's not been necessarily the most calm day so far. And so, yeah, I will be back tomorrow. I will roll over the Reefer Madness story because it's a funny one. It's more humorous than anything else, than informative. And, TGIF. Then I don't stream on the weekend and go out for lunch. Actually relax for a couple of hours. We'll see how the baby deals with that as well at the time. I thank you all for tuning in. And again, really quickly, remember, there is a link at the top, pinned on chat if you're on YouTube. It's also cross-platform in the description to my work against wokeness. I do ask that you check it out if you're into political debate. You do oppose wokeness. It provides arguments against the central premises of wokeness and will make you, in my opinion at least, in my own analytical opinion, more able to debate the subject with people that either don't know what woke is or support it, and then usually use weasel words to define the subject, which typically are not actually accurate pragmatically at all. I am working on new works. I'll be doing a little bit of a readout tomorrow as well on that subject, specifically my anti-gun control work. And so, yeah, I will be back tomorrow. That's about all. Peace out.